My name's Amara, and I'm 29 years old. I live in a busy city where every day feels like a marathon. That's why, when the opportunity for a quiet weekend getaway came up, I jumped on it. I booked a cozy errand in a secluded area about 2 hours from home. The listing looked perfect: charming decor, peaceful surroundings, and plenty of positive reviews. It seemed like the perfect escape. The drive there was relaxing. By the time I arrived, the sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the property. The house looked exactly like the pictures, quaint and inviting, surrounded by tall trees and complete solitude. As I walked up the steps, I noticed a handwritten note on the kitchen counter from the host. It welcomed me and mentioned a few house rules, but what caught my eye was the line that said, "The door at the end of the hallway is locked for private use. Please do not attempt to open it." I shrugged it off. I assumed it was probably a storage space or a room where the host kept their personal belongings. It didn't bother me much. After all, the rest of the house was beautiful. I spent my first evening curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in months. But by the second night, things started to feel off. It started with small noises. Around 10 p.m., I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard a faint thud. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct enough to make me pause. I told myself it was probably the house settling. It was old after all. But then it happened again. A soft, deliberate thud, like someone gently knocking on wood. It seemed to be coming from the locked door. I laughed nervously, brushing the thought away. "It's nothing," I told myself. Maybe something fell over in there. Maybe the host left something unstable leaning against the wall. I tried to convince myself there was a rational explanation, but my unease grew. I turned on some music to drown out my thoughts and went back to scrolling through my phone. But about an hour later, I noticed something new. Shadows, faint but unmistakable, moving back and forth under the crack of the locked door. My stomach dropped. I froze, staring at the light beneath the door. Maybe I was imagining it. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again, but the shadows were still there. Slow, deliberate movements like someone pacing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer. Then came a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it was unmistakably a hushed voice coming from behind that door. My heart was racing now. I backed away slowly, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. I dialed the host's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped, scared to stay, but also too afraid to go anywhere near that door. I decided I couldn't sleep here tonight. I grabbed my backpack and started shoving my things inside, desperate to leave. But when I reached the front door, I froze again. It wouldn't open. I twisted the knob, tugged at the latch, but it didn't budge. My panic grew as I realized the door wasn't just locked. It was bolted shut from the outside. My mind raced. Someone had locked me in. "Help!" I screamed, pounding on the door. My voice echoed through the empty woods outside, but there was no response. I ran to the windows, only to find that they were nailed shut. The whispers from the hallway grew louder now, and I swear I could hear faint footsteps moving closer to the door. I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and stood in the living room, trembling, waiting for something to happen. Minutes passed, then an hour. Nothing. Finally, I heard voices from outside, real voices. A neighbor had heard my screams and called the police. Relief washed over me as I saw flashlights shining through the windows. Within minutes, they broke the front door open. The first thing they did was check the locked room. I stood frozen as they forced the door open. Inside was a small, makeshift living space. Dirty bedding, empty food containers, and piles of clothes. It reeked of sweat and something metallic. In the corner, a man was crouched, his face gaunt and his eyes wild. The police quickly restrained him. I found out later that he was a wanted fugitive, someone the host had been secretly harboring. The locked room was his hideout. The thuds, shadows, and whispers I'd heard weren't my imagination. They were him. The host was arrested too, for aiding and abetting. Even though I left that house physically unharmed, I've never felt the same since. The thought of how close I came to danger, how I slept just feet away from someone so dangerous, still keeps me up at night. I'll never stay in a secluded room again.